All right, when we last met, we had opened up the book of Isaiah to chapter 40, and we had gotten, I think, up to verse 20 of Isaiah chapter 40, and we mentioned that it is the prologue to hope. We began by asking, what does a people in captivity need to hear? And I think we came to the conclusion they needed to hear hope. And so Isaiah here, he's writing in 8th century BC to a 6th century captivity group of people that are in Babylonian captivity. They've found themselves in exile, and the emotional setting of that is critical to us. These are not people that are just doubting God's existence. These are people that are in doubt of his goodness. And what they needed to hear was exactly what Isaiah offers them. And so from there, verses 1 and following, verse 1 and 2 give us a proclamation of comfort. We read there, comfort ye my people, saith your God, in verse 1. So that double imperative, comfort ye, announcing that exile, which their captivity was a form of discipline to them that had run its course. It would run its course. We're talking 8th century BC. And so we also noted the covenant language to that. My people signifies that the judgment and the punishment that he gave them did not nullify his covenant with David, with anyone. That God would bring about his end of that covenant. We also examined the Hebrew idiom there, double, in verse 2, for she hath received of the Lord's hand double for all her sins. Not excessive punishment, but full and sufficient punishment, discipline had been given. And now he's comforting them with the fact that this is going to end. This is not going to be forever. Verses 3 through 5 brought us to the voice in the wilderness in verse 3. And who does that speak of? John the Baptist, absolutely. So this ought to tell us that this restoration that Isaiah is speaking of here, it's not merely just returning people to a land, to a piece of real estate. It's not returning an ethnic group back to the land that they rightfully own. This all gets fulfilled in Christ. We know that because Isaiah 40 and verse 3 is quoted in Matthew 3 and verse 3. The application is there made to John the Baptist, who was the forerunner to who? To Jesus. So this is about the coming of the Lord. It's about the forgiveness of sins. It's about the beginning, the establishment of his kingdom, which is his church. Verses 6 through 8, all flesh is as grass, or all flesh is grass. It is contrasting man with God. We start to see this contrast happening. These oppressors that the God's people were oppressed by in Babylon, those oppressors were not forever. They are temporary. Suffering is temporary. Even earthly comforts are temporary, we read there. But the single constant that we know is God and his word. Looking there in verse 8, the grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but the word of our God shall stand forever. Then we see in verses 9 through 11, or we saw two complementary portraits of God. He is the sovereign king, he is the sovereign ruler, and he is the gentle shepherd. Verses 12 through 20, we have a series of rhetorical questions the answer to each of those rhetorical questions is God. So these are comparing God with all of creation, basically, or nothing in creation compares with God, is the gist of what we see. We see the folly of idolatry and how that man was worshiping things. Just think about how man was having to make decisions on what type of wood to use for his idols so that it wouldn't decompose at such a fast rate. Well, think about that. If you're God, if you have to pay in mind how quickly this wood is going to decompose for you to construct your own God, then how is he going to bring you back to life? How is he supposed to sustain your life if you have to sustain his? And then the fact that they have to bring in special craftsmen to make it so that these idols don't just fall over. They don't have to be picked up like Dagon of the Philistines, how he fell within their temple. Why would you worship a God and trust a God to pick you up that you have to pick up? And so we see the folly, just the almost comical folly of worshiping what man has made with his own hands. So now in verse 21, Isaiah pivots here. He, with the absurdity of fashioning a God for yourself and worshiping it, he now looks toward he who is God in verse 21. Have you not known, he says, have you not heard? Have it not been told to you from the beginning? And in other words, you already know this. This is not new information to you. It was told you from the beginning. It's been declared from the foundations of the world. And Isaiah here, he takes them through this reasoning, and we'll see him move to the heavens to prove his point. So we have a pivot there coming from the folly of idolatry, which Israel and Judah both were guilty of. And we find after this captivity, the worshiping of engraved images is something, it's a thing of the past for them. So we open up, I wonder if we could have somebody read verses 21 through 24, please, of chapter 40.
Do you not know, have you not heard, has it not been told you from the beginning, have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy, and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught, and reduces the rulers of the world to nothing. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground, and he blows on them and they wither. And a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff.
All right, thank you, brother. So here we have, he is, as we have already seen, he is the sovereign king and gentle shepherd. We see another picture of a sovereign ruler here in verses 21 through 24. And God is pictured here as sitting above the earth, and he stretches out the heavens as a curtain. So he's enthroned above the earth. Earthly rulers are temporary. You know, we're seeing a lot of temporary rulers just in Iran right now. Some of them not lasting a day. Some of these, who was the man that was in charge at one point at the initial outset? Can't remember his name, but he's a despot, and if you were under him, you would feel as though this is just the way of life now. This is how I have to live underneath this tyrant. Well, no earthly ruler is forever, but God alone is ultimate. Many will look at chapter 40 and verse, where does he say the circle of the earth? In 22, verse 22. It's interesting. I was talking with Dave Miller the last time I spoke with him. he asked me how this class was going. I said, well, we're about to open up chapter 40. And he just so happened to mention this, that the circle of the earth, a lot of people use this to support the idea of scientific foreknowledge. And I think I used to be one of those. The circle of the earth. Well, that proves that the scientific foreknowledge of the Bible, knowing that the earth was not flat, you know? And so Dave brought this to my attention, saying, well, the Hebrew translated circle here, which looks like hug in English. I don't think it's probably how you pronounce it, but it could denote circle, circuit, compass, horizon, or boundary. And there is actually a separate word in Hebrew that speaks of a ball or a sphere. It's not this word. So if you've used this to prove the scientific foreknowledge of the Bible, knowing that the earth is not flat, probably we ought not to do it with this verse. There's other ways of going about doing that. The Bible definitely doesn't teach that the earth is flat. Does not mention that at all. But we need to take care to teach soundly and not use verses out of context. I was disappointed when I learned this. I was like, oh man, can't use that one. But this verse, it's also poetic. Remember, most of Isaiah is poetry. And so we have to keep it in the context in which it's written. This is poetry. It's meant to magnify, to picture God as an ultimate power and sovereign over the earth. So the point of this passage is God is exalted. He's in this exalted position. He's enthroned above all. He has creative authority, meaning he established the boundaries of creation. It's hard to imagine creation having a boundary. It's hard to wrap your head around the universe somewhere not being anything. I can't wrap my head around that. I don't know if you guys can, but it's just he's pictured here in a poetic language. And by the way, he that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. That's poetic language. We ought to see it as such. It doesn't take away from the power of that verse to say that this isn't scientific foreknowledge. In fact, it does the exact opposite. So the point is, this is not an ancient description of what nature is or reality. This is a poetic description of who God is. And it's very important that these people in captivity remember who God is. We're going to talk about that. When we're going through hard times, we've actually already talked about that with Hezekiah's prayer. The first thing he does is recognize who God is. And that's what we need to do. And Hezekiah was praying in a time of crisis. Whenever we're in a time of crisis, just as they were in a crisis in Babylonia, we need to remember who God is and not forget that. Make sense to everybody? All right. So verses 25 through 26, someone, please.
The new then will you compare me? Lift up your eyes from high and see the Creator. He who brings out the most abundant God, the greatness of his might, because he is strong and powerful, not wounded.
All right, thank you very much. So verses 25 and 26, I don't know about you guys, but I like to look at stars. You guys ever find yourself just looking at stars and having your mind blown? Especially if you can ever find a completely dark sky area. I think the closest one in Georgia to here, rather, would be the Okefenokee Swamp, I think. It's like the perfect dark sky you can get down there. But you'll notice you'll see every single star. No, I take that back. You won't see every single star. You'll see a lot more than you will in Cumming, Georgia. And it is mind-blowing You could not possibly sit there and count them all. Just some statistics here. The number of stars thought to be in our galaxy, the Milky Way, 100 to 400 billion stars. The number of galaxies in the universe, and this would be outdated information because this is Hubble telescope. Nearly 2 trillion galaxies are estimated based on the Hubble telescope. And now we have the James Webb telescope, and it's picking up so much more. By the way, with the Hubble telescope, I think there's a point, I think the story goes, they had run out of things to look at. So they just decided to point it at a blank spot in the sky. And what they discovered was thousands more galaxies. So it's just mind-blowing to think about. 2 trillion galaxies around, according to Hubble. Now, the total estimated stars in the observable universe, this is today, 10 sextillion to 1 septillion. And you can look at the screen and see how many zeros that is. That's a lot of zeros. The naked eye, which is probably what you'd see in the Okefenokee today, and what they would be seeing in Isaiah's day, what those in captivity would be seeing, is about between 3,000 and 6,000 stars is what they'd be seeing with the naked eye. The ancient Greeks estimated, of course, the Greeks are later than this in history, but they were in the low thousands. So all this to say, not one of us can say with authority how many stars there are, can we? Any of you? God can, can't he? Isaiah points this out. God, not one is missed. He says there, verse 26, at the very end, let's just read the whole thing. Lift up your eyes on high and behold who hath created these things that bring out their host by number. He calleth them all by names. So I could call every single one of you in here by name right now. And the reason I'm able to do that, because you're not 1 septillion. At a certain point, I'm not going to be able to name everybody. If our congregation keeps growing, it's going to be increasingly hard and more difficult to name everybody by name. God calls these stars by name. Again, this is poetry, but it's also true, isn't it? Our God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and he has not forgotten a one. Not one faileth. That's a precision. That's a precise number. So if God governs the cosmos with precision, he has not lost track of one star. He's not lost track of Israel. He's not lost track of Judah. He's not lost track of me. He's not lost track of you. He is aware. If you think about this, what does Isaiah's approach to this exiled people remind you of? Who else is approached this way in the Old Testament? Job. God approaches Job with the same line of reasoning. Look, consider who I am, right? And that's what these people need to do. And it's what Isaiah has them do. Any comments or questions? All right. So moving on to verses 27 through 31, please, someone. Through the end of the chapter, please.
My way is hidden from the Lord. My just plan is fast over by my God. Have you not known, have you not heard, the everlasting God of the Lord, the ends of the earth, never changing or weary. He is understanding, his understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the weak and to those who have no might, he increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But those who wait on the Lord, they shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not
All right, thank you very much. So just to reiterate, these people have been pulled from their homes. They have witnessed some of their own being put to death. The nobles and by the way, Babylonian captivity took place over 3 waves. And what they did was they took the most important people first. They took the nobles, the rulers first. They took the people that basically ran society first through engineers, people like that. They took them and among those first 2 waves, and then they took all the rest of them later. They just so that society could collapse there. First of all, you won't have any revolts happening. You won't have any charismatic leaders scraping up a revolt against Babylon. But they took them in 3 waves. I'm working on a map that I can show you guys as to that journey. They used the King's Highway to get all the way back. They didn't. If you look at the map, you have the Arabian Desert. They didn't cross that. It wasn't a straight shot across the Arabian Desert. You can't do that. You have to follow, fertile areas, water when you travel back then. And so it's a long journey back to Babylon. They've been taken far away from their homes, resettled in different areas within that empire. And is that hard? You think you'd be okay with that if you just got moved from your home here in Georgia and taken far, far away, separated from your loved ones and your neighbors? You can't worship the way you know you ought to. They've been taken away from Jerusalem. And what's in Jerusalem? The temple. Their way of life is completely uprooted, dismantled, and that's hard. That is difficult. So, question, can our personal circumstances shape how we think about God? Does that happen? How does that usually happen? Trials, life events. Mm-hmm.
When those come, then that's what you call that.
Right.
Had conversations, worship services being had.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have news for everybody. Times in my life when that happened was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of slowed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the events in your life, you able to fall back on the strength that the Lord gives you, knowing that He's always here for you.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's important that the grounding took place before the crisis happened, didn't it? Now, what if? Yeah.
Teach our young people and teach our friends, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the purpose right here. There's more hope.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. You've heard of people growing bitter toward God because, maybe they look like they've got it all figured out, and then crisis occurs and they blame God. They turn against Him. Is that because their view has changed? Has their view of God changed due to their circumstances?
A good number probably never had a deep relationship with God and those.
Right, absolutely.
They're just looking for an excuse to not be God.
Yep.
Because normally when things turn bad, when you start seeing people turn to God.
Right.
So everything is hunky-dory, the status quo. They turn back and they may more likely accept it.
Yep. We need to be careful, though, of how we respond to crisis, how we respond to circumstances, letting circumstances shape our view of God, or should our view of God shape how we view those circumstances? As something, looking here at verse 27, as was just read, why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speakest, O Israel, my way is hid from the Lord, and my judgment is passed over from my God. So what did Isaiah just say before that? He said, God hasn't forgotten a single star. He can name every one of them. He's not forgotten you. He can't forget you. Why are you saying this in verse 27? Well, there were those that had forgotten or just didn't have the correct view of God in the first place. This is basically altered theology. Their theology is offered, how they view God. They imply here in verse 27 that God does not see, that God does not act fairly, and or they're saying God is just not concerned. Which you can see people do sometimes, given hard circumstances, right? We see that happen sometimes. So that's why we need to be grounded. These people weren't grounded as they should have been. And you can't blame Isaiah, because this is 100 years after Isaiah taught or wrote here.
Another thing I was just thinking is that I relate to my mother. She was such a strong Christian woman, and when my father was very ill, her attitude towards us as her children was important.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that she said to us, like the Lord will provide
Mm-hmm.
us to manage the things. And then she shared that with doctors and nurses when they want to hear it. But the fact is that we need to share that strength and not just keep it to ourselves. Our
Absolutely.
example is just-
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So their root problem here was a misperception of who God is. Everybody agree? And that can be a problem if we are letting our circumstances shape how we perceive God rather than the other way around, letting our relationship with God shape our view of the circumstances we're in. Well, the result of that's going to be discouragement, as the people in captivity are going to see. So the answer here is in verse 28 through 29. Hast thou not known? Hast thou not known? Hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increaseth strength. So God is everlasting. He is the creator. He cannot be wearied. That means he cannot be, there's no stopping him, basically. He is unsearchably wise here. So he does not respond with emotional reassurance here. He responds by correcting how they view God here. Which there's something to be said about that when we're counseling others, isn't it? There's just providing the touchy-feely, emotional response to them, or there's pointing them to who God is. One's going to be more effective than the other. Verses, any comments or questions? All right. Verses 30 and 31. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. And then here we all know this verse, don't we? They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. I think you said something about this verse recently, didn't you? About waiting. But very powerful. I'm going to reiterate some of it if it was you, I think. But even the young and the strong, eventually they're going to fall or fail under their own power. This word wait, it's probably not served well. The English word does not serve the meaning well here. What do we think when we think wait? Just, what's that? A line? Yes. Yeah. When we think about wait, it's usually a waiting room at the dentist or the doctor, and or a line at the DMV or somewhere, line at Six Flags. What are you doing when you're in line? when you're at the DMV or you're at the you're waiting in a waiting room for the dentist to come out and call your name, or the hygienist, whatever. You're just sitting there doing nothing, aren't you? Twiddling your thumbs, just waiting. You know, I don't think the English word serves this purpose very well. If you look at the Hebrew, you don't get an idea of just passively sitting. You don't get an idea of just inactivity, delay. What it is putting your full trust in God. This is, I have the word somewhere here. Thought I had it. Yes, anticipation. So, yeah, wait with anticipation, to look eagerly for, and to hope in and to trust confidently. So it's not just mere waiting, just a delay, inactivity. And in fact, the description of those that are waiting is not inactivity, is it? It says mounting up, soaring above, running, that being sustained, a pace that you're keeping. It's not inactivity. It's walking, daily endurance. And that's not like sitting and doing nothing. There were many we know of, and we could read of them in the following prophets to Isaiah, one before the prophets. There were some in exile that waited on the Lord, that put their full trust on him. First one we might think of is Daniel. Is Daniel inactive, just sitting around? What describes Daniel? What was he doing? Praying. He was serving faithfully, and he was serving God faithfully. He was, you could say, he walked without fainting. Nothing stopped him from serving God. Not a decree from the king, nothing. Yep, absolutely. He was actively serving God, actively doing as God commanded him. He knew his dietary restrictions and kept to them.
One thing too, waiting means you not putting your will, your thoughts in front of God.
Yep.
So you're
Absolutely.
waiting for him to give you the answer, or not you give the answer. Wait for him to give the answer.
Right. Yep.
Waiting for his counsel, waiting for the counsel of the Lord. When you sit in a courtroom, what do? You sit there and you wait for the person to be judge.
Yeah.
Give you direction, which way you're going. You have to don't wait for the judge to make your judgment on listening.
Yep. But I don't want the English word wait to water down our understanding of what Isaiah meant, which is, as we said, full, eagerly awaiting, trusting, and a confident trust that God's going to fulfill his promise. Yes, sir. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So we're looking at people that waited on the Lord. And, in the sense that we're talking about it, Daniel served faithfully in Babylon. Was Nehemiah inactive? Nehemiah waited on the Lord, eagerly awaited God and you think Nehemiah probably had an understanding of Isaiah's prophecy, of what Isaiah was saying. So he waited, and we'll find he's during the Persian Empire. And what was he doing back in Persia? He was planning, he was preparing, he was praying, and he ran and he was not weary. As soon as Cyrus gave him that decree, we'll get to talk about Cyrus in a few chapters. As as soon as Cyrus gave that decree, he was ready to go. He'd been waiting for this. And waiting not passively, not twiddling his thumbs. He was working. Esther waited on the Lord when she was in captivity. Waited within, what's the word we think of when we think of Esther? Starts with a P. Providence. She waited within God's timing, and you could say she rose up above fear, and she soared like an eagle above fear, and acted with courage. So this waiting on the Lord, it's not inactivity. In fact, it's very much the opposite. The one who waits acts. The one who waits is busy in the work of the Lord. They act in renewed strength, just as Isaiah is mentioning here, and a strength that is supplied not from themselves, but from God. So you might think, we reach moments in our life where we're depressed, where we're down, where life's not going our way, basically. The best thing we can do in those situations is to pour ourselves into service to God's kingdom, a service to God and his kingdom. Yep. Oh, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. Active. So let's read it again. Verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. We're putting that in the context of the people that are in captivity. They're thousands of miles away from their home. Their way of life dismantled. Their ability to worship God completely dismantled. Those words are going to mean something. And when does the renewal of their strength happen? And when does the mounting up with wings as eagles and running and not be weary? When does that happen? When they're waiting. It's not after. It's not after they've been waiting and God's given them achieved his promise or given his part of the promise. This is something that happens while they're waiting. This is an active trust, eagerly awaiting and confident trust in God that Isaiah is describing here.
You go back to verse 29. It says, he gives power to the faint,
Mm-hmm.
and to him who has no might increases their strength. But then 30, they're talking about even the youths shall faint and be weary.
Mm-hmm.
On their own power, on their own thoughts, own energy, instead of just wait. The Lord's going to let you know when to be executed, when you go execute whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then from that, you gain the more strength than you did on your own.
Yep. Those arrogant youths thinking they can handle it all on their own and on their own power. Even they will fail, but that true strength comes from God. Yes.
Well, if you look at it from a different aspect, though, it's what you're waiting on.
Mm-hmm.
You're waiting on God as opposed to waiting for my luck to change.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone around me to come around to my way of thinking. 100,000 other things you can reason out. You're waiting on God. You're not waiting in vain.
Right. Absolutely. If we want to use the English word wait, we could. What about expect? We're expecting. That's probably a better word. I'd have to look at it some. I just thought about it. When someone's expecting, if you say that couple, they're expecting, what are they expecting? What are we talking about? A baby, right? So I happen to think that, I gather that when you're expecting, when the baby is introduced to brought home, I wonder if there's ever been a parent that said, oh, wait, we need a crib. Or we don't have diapers. We don't have clothes for this thing. We they don't say that, do they? Why? They've prepared. They've been expecting. So they've been working. They've been putting these things together. So the same thing here. We are eagerly awaiting, expecting that which God says he's going to accomplish. And so we're not just passively sitting around. We are working because we're expecting, right? Make sense? All right. Any comments or questions?
I think just the big takeaway from the maturity perspective is we can serve God in difficult times and easy times.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're in the difficult times, are we waiting, kind of to John's point, are we waiting for just the difficult times to be over?
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking how prayerful, focused, faithful, religious people will get in difficult times. But then as soon as the difficult times are over, we'll forget God.
Yeah.
So they were really not waiting on God. They were waiting on, I'm just ready to get my life back to what I used to have. And I'm tired of having to talk to God.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Amen. Yeah, waiting is not just saying, well, I'm just praying about it. I'm praying about it, and maybe I'll get through this. No, it's not what Isaiah is referring to. What he's saying is way more powerful than simply passively waiting for something to just be over. This is much more powerful. And they that wait on the Lord are active. They are running, they're walking, they're running, they're flying, even Isaiah says. He pictures it. And we need to be the same way in times of crisis. Don't forget who God is, who we serve. Let our service to him shape how we react to the circumstances we're in. And that's the takeaway from 40. Thank you, guys. We'll pick up 41 next week.
It's